Okay. Well, I like to share my story about my near-death experience. And where I start is when I hit bottom in life. And that's the most significant thing, I believe. And a lot of people have been there and understand what that's like. And my bottom in life was November 1st, 2001. It was All Saints' Day. At that time in my life, physically, what I'd been going through was for 20 years, I had been suffering from the effects of two incurable illnesses, lupus and epilepsy. And the side effects from my epilepsy is I had between 4 to 6 seizures every day. And for those who don't understand what lupus is an autoimmune disease. It's an overactive immune system where your body starts attacking healthy tissues and organs. So as the result of the side effects of that led to 5 surgeries that I had to have, and led to a hole in my heart. And I saw 5 medical doctors on a regular basis, and I was on 24 different medications. I was alive, but I wasn't living, and I was dying, but I wasn't dead. Now, on top of that, from the age of 14, I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So eventually it was that day I said, I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. And I had to do something. And I wasn't sure exactly what to do. So what I did was I drove to the cemetery to be near my mom, because I was also mentally, I was grieving the recent loss of my mother. And I just wasn't in any state at all, spiritually, emotionally. I was just already dead. So that night I drove to the cemetery and I got down on my knees on my mother's chilly grave and I begged God to take me home. I was very angry at God. Why do I live in this state of limbo? You got to make up your mind, God. Heal me or take me home. Basically, shit or get off the pot. Make up your mind. And I'm just praying and sobbing. Have you no compassion, God? Have you no mercy? Just please. Why me? Why me? Why is all this happening to me? And then I moved to making a deal with God. Now, many of you may have done this, made a deal with God, right? And I was like, okay, God, give me a sign that you have not abandoned me, and I wasn't sure what, I know, I'll quit drinking. But if I get no sign, then screw you, God, I will just drink myself to death because I no longer care. And what seemed like hours of praying and sobbing and not getting any response, just talking to myself, I just admitted defeat and emotionally and spiritually bankrupt. I went home. I went home, and the next day, I got my sign from God. I had what was known as a near-death experience. And I'm going to tell you the events that led up to that. The next day, I decided that I was going to drive to the city. And by the city, what I mean is Rochester, New York. I live in Western New York in a very rural area, 45 minutes south of Rochester in the Finger Lakes. So that next day, I decided I was going to drive to Rochester and get some drugs. And while I was there, I wanted to buy the latest book from John Edward at the time, which was One Last Time. So before I left, I popped a couple of ephedrine pills. I used to take like a lot of amphetamines and stuff to just act like I was a normal person because I was exhausted all the time. You had to sleep 10, 15 hours a day from the lupus. And so I popped some drugs. I went to the city. I drove to the city. I bought myself a bag of cocaine. And I took the bag of cocaine and I put it in the console of my car. And then I drove to the nearby liquor store, bought a bottle of whiskey, and stuck it under the front seat of my car. And as I was driving, I got on the expressway that goes around the city of Rochester, and it's called 390. And as I was driving down 390 Expressway, I got my sign from God. Now, y'all may know what it's like to hear a song at church or on the radio or somewhere where the words to that song and the message that it speaks to you is the precise message that you needed at the exact time in your life, and it speaks to your very heart and soul. Well, while I was driving down the expressway, the song came out on the radio. It was one I was very familiar with, but hadn't heard in probably 20 years. And it was from the rock group from the 80s, The Styx. And the words that spoke to my broken spirit in the refrain were these: when nothing seems to fit and things don't go your way, you know you've had enough. You've had the right to say, why me? Why me? The title of the song is Why Me, and it described everything that I was going through in the cemetery the night before. Oh my God, this is my sign from God. And I just immediately burst out crying, joy and excitement and relief. And at the same exact moment, I felt this electrical surge go through my entire body. It was if I was struck by the proverbial lightning bolt of God. But the strange thing is that there was no pain. But I didn't care. I was just driving and I was so happy, and thank you, God, I got my sign. It was only much later on that I learned that what was happening to me at that exact moment in time was cardiac arrest. But I didn't know and I didn't care. I was just so happy I got my sign from God. I'm crying, I'm driving, and I was right near the exit for Borders bookstore where I wanted to go to get the book by John Edward. So I managed to pull off the expressway, and right around the corner was the bookstore. I pull into the bookstore parking lot, and I parked quite a ways from the front door because I wanted to kind of be by myself. I parked the car, and I noticed the time on the clock. It was 5:15 p.m. I shut off the car, and I just put my head back against the headrest. I'm sobbing, I'm crying. Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you for not abandoning me. And with that, the next thing I know, I'm floating up, up, up into the most beautiful, bright, white light. And when I reached that brilliant sight, I was immersed in a tremendous amount of love that saturated every cell of my body. And this was the kind of love, amount of love, it was 1,000,000 times more intense than anything I'd ever experienced back on Earth. It was just incredible. And I was in this light. I felt a peace and tranquility settle within my mind. And it was if I was wrapped in a down-filled comforter, and I knew that I was being taken care of now, and everything was going to be all right. And then I relaxed into this total state of surrender. And I recognized this being of light, and I recognized the place I was in. I was with my creator in heaven, and I was home. And this light and this love made me feel like I was the most important person in the universe, and nothing I could ever say or do would ever separate me from that light, as we were merged into one. And I understood condemnation and punishment were concepts that could not and did not exist in this all-encompassing love. Any sins I had ever created on earth were already forgiven. I wasn't there to be judged. I was there to be held and to rest and heal. And the next thing that happened is I moved into what is commonly referred to as a life review. And I'm not going to get into all the details of that. For one thing, a lot of things were very personal that I'm not too proud of. But the important thing is, from what I was shown, people that I thought were unkind to me were merely helping me progress in my spiritual evolution. Were just merely helping me. And I, with complete understanding, I totally comprehended all the insanity of my life, all the pain, everything I went through made perfect sense. And the next thing that happened, I was back after the life review. I was back in the light. In the light, without any spoken words, God communicated to me. He said, I have done everything you asked of me. I gave you a sign that I haven't abandoned you, and I brought you back home. You cannot stay, however. Your work is not yet finished. Now, in response, I indicated that I was okay with this decision. I was okay to go back because I knew it was the right thing to do. And I would have promised anything to anybody who loved me that much. And with this thought, the light began to pull away from me. And I felt myself being pulled backwards. And the next thing I knew, I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of Borders bookstore. And I was on such a high. I was in total euphoria, and I felt tremendous, like I could conquer the world. The high I was on was like 1,000,000 times better than anything I had ever experienced. And I sat there, I'm trying to process what happened, and I look on my watch, and I notice the time is 6 o'clock. 45 minutes had passed since I parked the car. And I'm trying to process what happens. And I say out loud, ironically, I say out loud, what the hell just happened? Well, apparently heaven had just happened to me. I just knew something incredible. It happened. And like I said, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to process everything. And then all of a sudden I remembered a promise I had made the night before. The promise I made to God. So I reached in the console of my car and I picked up the bag of cocaine, and I reached under the front seat of my car and I pulled out the bottle of whiskey. And I'm looking at these things and I'm like, this is not going to be easy. But at the same time, all of a sudden, these things didn't matter to me. They seemed like penny candy because the high I was on in that moment was a million times better than anything I ever got from any earthly drugs. And I no longer desired to do them. So as I'm sitting there, I don't know how long I sat there just trying to figure everything out, but I thought, well, I checked myself over. I guess I'm fine. I feel fantastic. I might as well go in the bookstore and get the book I drove all the way here for. So I open the car door. I step in the parking lot. It didn't take me long to realize that the world I was stepping into was not the world that I left 45 minutes earlier. The first thing I noticed is I had to walk a little ways across the parking lot to get to the front door of the store, but I wasn't walking. I felt like I was floating. And I get into the store and I'm looking around at all the other customers. And I had such love for them. And I just wanted to run up to each person and hug them and tell them, don't you know how much God loves you? Don't you know how much I love you? And everything's going to be all right. Now, fortunately, I restrained myself from doing that. And I got the book and I got the heck out of there. But it was only with time that I realized how much my life had changed the day I saw the light.
Oh, that was incredible. Wow. Yeah. I know that you were able to heal. You'll get to that, but what caused the lupus and the seizures, do you know? Or did you always have it?
Yeah, I
Or
had
was it
seizure
caused?
disorder from like the age of 21. I think that started. And it was a few years after that, maybe 26, that I had the seizure disorder and I died when I was basically 40. Had the
Oh,
near-death experience. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So,
that's incredible. And I know I've heard from a lot of people, and I actually spoke to Ned Matania the last interview, and he was saying that a lot of people that have had NDEs, they just want to love everybody, and it's infectious. It's like anyone who's around you will also start feeling that and start vibrating at that. Does that happen to you now? That people, okay, we'll get there. That yeah, that people just kind of feel that love because it does shift you.
yeah. I mean, in the second part of this interview, I do want to talk about the after effects because I think that's most important. A lot of people don't get into the after effects and how much your life has changed. But one of the things I noticed first is our family. I'm one of 6 kids, and our family that we were not huggers. You know what I'm saying? There weren't people that went hugging all the time. And after my NDE, I just wanted to hug everybody all the time. I'm hugging everybody. Whenever I saw my sister, I'm giving her a hug. My brothers, I'm giving them a hug. And they're like, and then, after a while, it's like now it's like a normal thing. We all hug each other. Like, but our family never did that. And even people I just meet, like I just met this physical therapist the other day who's taking care of my husband for his hip replacement. I was just so grateful for everything she did. Can I give you a hug? Oh, sure, I'll give you a hug. So everywhere I go, can I give you a hug? So, yeah. And did you want me to go on then with the after
Yep,
effects
yep.
or?
You can carry on. Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, one of the first things I noticed that I had my heart overflowed with this level of love that was not human. It just wasn't human. And for example, I loved everyone the same. I loved everyone unconditionally. I love the homeless person on the street as much as I love my husband. I love the birds and the squirrels and the bunnies and the forest as much as I love my family and friends. I love so much it physically hurt as I felt a constant pain in my chest. I could feel this living presence in me. And all I kept thinking about, I thought my heart would explode. And I kept thinking of that scene in the original Alien movie where the alien comes bursting out of the guy's chest. I was like, so this is going to happen to me. One of these days, something's going to happen to me. Well, fortunately, that didn't, but that's what I was living with. And I immediately knew I started, getting all this energy. And I was walking through the woods every day, walking my dogs, and I noticed everything was of God. God was in everything, and there was nothing that was of God. And I recognized that. And for example, I could see God when I just looked at a flower, like a daffodil. I could connect and consciously feel and see, God. And it would make me cry, like tears of joy and bliss. And I had to make up a term for these sudden onsets of joy and bliss that I would cry for no apparent reason. So I started calling them passion attacks. They're like grief attacks, only passion attacks, the sudden onset of emotion, that overwhelming emotion for pure joy and bliss. I could see a butterfly warming its wings in the sun and just start sobbing. And when I was outside and it started raining, I could feel the drops of rain on my arm, and I could feel God in the drops of rain. And ever since then, I called it liquid love. And it would just make me sob. It's like I had this strong connection. And then I found through some of my research, what I had was called a unitive experience. I knew I was one with everything. And there was nothing that I wasn't at one with. And because of this oneness, I found out just through, experience, a whole new world opened up to me. I found out that I could merge with whatever I've focused my mind on. For example, I would walk to the nearby lake and I would see the eagle flying overhead. I could merge with this eagle and feel what it was like to soar through the sky and maybe catch a thermal. Or I would look at the geese that were floating on the lake. I could merge with one of the geese and feel what it was like to kind of just gently bob up and down on the waves. In the fall time, we walk through the woods and fields, and there's these milkweed plants. If you're familiar with milkweed, they have these pods, and you open them up, and there's these white fluffy seeds inside. And I could just take the seeds and scatter them to the wind, and then merge with them to feel what it was like to kind of float on the breeze. And in the wintertime, what I'd like to do is just focus on one snowflake and feel what it was like to gently fall from the sky in a total state of peace and joy. Now, who knew that snowflakes were joyful? So I spent all my time every day just being and merging and exploring this whole new world that opened up to me. And because of this, I had a very intense relationship with God. I just wanted to spend all my time in nature and meditation with God. And one day I had this epiphany, and I thought, well, if God is in me, he must be in everybody else too. Well, they didn't teach me this in religious education. No, they taught me that God was in heaven. He was separate from me. And the only way for me to be with him was to obey all the church rules. So now all of a sudden, my religion's not making sense to me anymore. And I was born and raised Catholic, and that was my whole life. And the other thing is my psychic ability, my consciousness expanded. I found that I could communicate with spirit. And so I was communicating with my angels and guides. And of course, I kept in touch with my mom. I would talk with her. I met my grandmother, who was on the other side, and I never knew her. She died when I was 5 years old. So these are just some of the strange things. And then the one really great thing is I noticed the changes in my physical body. before my NDE, it was all I could do to get out of bed, get to the car, do my morning routine, and keep my part-time job as a mental health counselor, psychologist. So all of a sudden, I'm like walking to the nearby lake, taking my dogs to the lake, and it was a 2 miles round trip hike. And I had all this energy and I felt great. The day after my NDE, I no longer had seizures. The seizures immediately stopped. And I wanted to find out exactly what happened to me that day. So I went to all 5 of my doctors and I got completely checked out. I had EEGs, new EEGs done on my brainwave by a neurologist. I went to a heart doctor. I had new EKGs done on my heart. My immunologist, I had anti-nuclear antibody tests for lupus. All my tests came back negative, and even the hole in my heart was gone. I was completely disease-free. And after several months, I tapered off all 24 medications that I was on. So I was medication and disease-free. And in addition to that, I was free of my drug and alcohol addiction. I no longer cared about them. I was too obsessed with God to do that. But so that was a real miracle. But the downside, integrating back into this world, well, I still really haven't fully done that. I used to say if I had three legs, 2 feet would have been on the other side and 1 foot here. And to this day, it pretty much still is that way. But some of the things that were really difficult was, I was like emotional roller coaster. I would go from states of bliss as long as I was in nature or meditating, I was happy. But then when I had to kind of be in this reality and play the role of the wife and the sister and the aunt, the psychologist, I wasn't into it so much. I no longer cared about cleaning the house, doing laundry, paying the bills, much to the chagrin of my husband. Nah, those things aren't going to affect my eternal life, so I really don't need to do those anymore. And the other big thing that I noticed was I hardly ate at all anymore because I felt like I was constantly, like when you're on amphetamines, you're high, you don't get hungry. And I realized that I was just in touch with my spirit side, which doesn't need to eat or sleep. And I was hardly sleeping at all. But the big thing was eating food. Eating food became torture to me. For one thing, it's hard to eat something that you feel at one with. To me, it felt like cannibalism. Like if I was to look at a hamburger, all I could see was the big brown eyes of a cow. And I was fully aware that something had to die in order for me to live. And that really bothered me. So I gave up eating meat because that just like eliminated a whole food group. And but I was keenly aware that even to eat a piece of bread, the stalk of wheat gave its life in order for me to live. And then I thought, well, why would they have to give up their life for me? I would gladly trade places. I would gladly lay down my life for that cow or that stalk of wheat so I could be home back in heaven with my mom and God. So I became jealous of my food. I was like, why can't that be me? I'm jealous of my food and I can't eat because it feels like cannibalism. So to this day, I don't eat a whole lot of food. It's just a thing. And to me, it's a waste of time. I just don't like taking the time. I got better things to do. I don't like to stop and eat. And so eventually I was like, I was on this emotional roller coaster and I was out of balance. I was way out of balance. I was going crazy, and I knew I needed help. I needed help. Now I was in the mental health field. I could go to fellow therapists, fellow psychologists or psychiatrists, talk to them, get the help. And I was like, no, they would probably, suggest some hospitalization or, medication. This is all, craziness. But this wasn't a medical issue. This was a God issue. So I went to the one person I thought would help and I thought would understand. I went to my priest. And this was very, very scary for me to do so because born and raised Catholic my entire life, but I never made an appointment to talk one-on-one to my priest for counseling. But I did. I was desperate, and I did. And so I met with him. I shared this whole story I just told you. And he listened very carefully, I thought attentively. And when I was done, he became very stern. Don't you know that what you're doing goes against the teachings of the Catholic Church? Talking to your mom, talking to your spirits, you are dabbling with the devil. And clearly, you are hallucinating from drugs that you're taking, and you need psychiatrists, you need hospitalization, you need some serious help. And he closed by saying, finally, you need to find another church. Billy, I need to find another church. Yes. I ran out of there. I was sobbing. I ran home to my husband. I was just crying. I was devastated. But then I got mad. As the week went on, I got mad. And I'm like, who is he to tell me I can't go to the same church I've been going to for 40 years? I was baptized there. I had my first communion, was, confirmation, got married, whole 9 yards. And this priest had only been there for 3 years because how they move him around and you're never sure why. So I said, well, I'm going to go to church the next week. So the following Sunday, I went to Mass as usual because I thought this is my church. The next day, a sheriff showed up in my front door, Livingston County Sheriff. By orders of this priest, you are not to attend Mass ever again, or you will be arrested for trespassing. I was legally excommunicated from my hometown church for maintaining a relationship with my mother, who was a devout Catholic and knew this priest very well, and for everything that happened to me. And I didn't understand it because I thought, if God could love and accept me, why could my own religion? And then I had this other burning question. If we can talk to God and the saints in heaven, why can't I talk to my mom or Uncle Joe or, or grandma? What's up with that? So I spent the next 10 years doing research and writing a book on the communion of saints, which is a church doctrine that we can utilize to talk with our family and friends in heaven. A lot of people don't realize that the word saint just means people who are holy. Doesn't matter whether you're living or dead. So I wrote this book that integrates parapsychology with Christian theology, mysticism, spiritualism, and Catholicism. It's called Talking to God and Grandma, Mystics, Mediums, and the Communion of Saints. And it's basically a book on spirit communication for Catholics. Now, it's for anyone that wants to learn how to communicate with spirit, but it is geared for people that, or anyone that believes in the communion or saints. It was brought up that way. So, and then I started my own counseling service. I eventually left the mental health field to kind of take the spiritual leap to start my own nonprofit organization called Gifts of Grace Ministry, because I wanted to help other people that have had paranormal, supernatural, mystical, near-death experiences. And since then, I've added the ET and UFO experiences and started my own Finger Lakes UFO meetup. So all this is part of my Gifts of Grace Ministry nonprofit. And so I like to help people who are having similar experiences. And also, I've been a member of IONS, the International Association Near Death Studies. They were very helpful to me. I've been a member for over 20 years and now volunteer as part of their IONS groups and events, sharing groups they have every week. And yeah, and then last year I wrote another book called Breakfast with Bluebirds, and that's just inspirational short stories that I wrote over the years to people on my newsletter list. And I wrote this book to help people who are going through a challenging time. And it has many stories of angels and miracles and lessons learned from everything from pets to bluebirds to even fireflies and even football. And that book is dedicated to the Buffalo Bills football team, Go Bills, and the Buffalo Bills Mafia. And proceeds from both the books go towards my Gifts of Grace Ministry or anyone else that I work with that wants to do fundraising events for their own nonprofits.
Yeah, that was incredible, that experience. And how long did you stay in that bliss state, or do you still experience it now?
Every day where I go in meditation. I spend a couple hours a day. Every morning and every night I meditate. But even just if I'm walking through the woods, I'm kind of almost like a walking meditation, connecting with nature and God. And I kind of walk through the woods and fields. There's paths that end up at our nearby lake, Hemlock Lake, which is a pristine lake. There's no houses on it. It's part of the 6,000 acre state forest I live on. And they have park benches there you can sit on and just look over the lake. And, you know, when I'm there, I'm in a state of bliss. And very often, even yesterday, I was just taking a walk in the barnyard and I noticed, oh, the milkweed pods, they broke open and they're all fluffy. So I just grabbed a handful and I went like, oh, yeah, that still works. It can still, you know, merge with the seeds and everything. So, oh, I do have a before and after. Do you want to show and tell?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So this was my life before my near-death experience. These are the 24 different medications that I was on at the time. Now I take this, vitamins. I take other supplements also. Also, before my near-death experience, I was known as Beer Babe. That was my nickname, Beer Babe. I was addicted to that, or any alcohol, just about. The only problem, there was never enough. And now I basically drink water. That's kind of my show and tell. I do have the books, if I can flash those up there. Okay. Those, and they're available on Amazon, both hard copy and Kindle. This is Talking to God and Grandma, Mystics, Mediums, and Communion of Saints. It was my first book. And both books have my near-death experience stories in it. But the second book, Breakfast with Bluebirds, this stems from my love of bluebirds. And when I spend time with them and feed them, it's also my time in meditation and prayer. So very easy to read short stories. Two of the stories are dedicated to the Buffalo Bills, or about the Buffalo Bills, and also how we can stay connected to loved ones in heaven through, and you can substitute really any football team in there, your favorite football team, but how we can stay connected to loved ones in heaven through watching their favorite football team and those types of things. And so there's some stories there about that. And so,
No, that looks wonderful. I just, what's interesting to me is that a lot of NDEs, when they come back, they go through a really severe depression because the contrast between that side and this side is so vast. Did you experience that, or was your life at such an all-time low that this, I mean, anything is just better to,
no,
when you are now? Or do you still have that every now and then as well?
yeah, I went through extreme homesickness. And I liken it to, I think it's like you're grieving. It's like when you grieve the loss of a loved one, you have to grieve your losses no matter what they are, whether you're losing a job, you lose a family or whatever. And I was grieving the loss of my home, my connection to God and my family and friends. So it's like a withdrawal that you go through in the same way I learned through a class I took in metaphysics that when you're grieving the loss of a loved one, it's much like when you stop drinking, you stop an addiction, you go through withdrawal symptoms. And because your body is, has to go through these things. In fact, I never really thought I was an alcoholic. Um, Other people would say things to me, maybe you're drinking too much, whatever. And when someone tells you that as an alcoholic, you just learn to avoid those people. It's like, but it wasn't until after my near-death experience that I went through, I guess what's called like the jitters. I went through this whole, the bends or whatever it's called, the withdrawal symptoms of being freezing cold and shaking for like 3 days and kind of hallucinating too. Yeah. So that's when I really realized was when I quit that. But the integration still, I'm pretty much a lone wolf. Um, I don't watch the news. To me, I just felt like an alien here because I feel like I understand that I'm a visitor here and this is not my home. So people get entrenched in all the stuff or, social media and all the stuff going on in the news and the negative stuff, the polarity thing. And to me, I watch it as an observer and I don't get caught up with it. I try, really, and it's really hard when it's your family, right? It's the family issues that are going on. But yeah, I try to tell people don't take things so seriously because, when you lose, you understand people because you used to be there. You used to be afraid of death. And all fear and all anger and all of that comes from fear of dying. So when you lose that fear of death and everything's going to be all right, you can't die, you're just going to, go to a better place. When you lose all that, you don't have a connection to a lot of people. You don't have a connection to people that are into politics or religion, hardcore. My connection is with my spiritual friends, people that I've met through ions and people that are a higher vibration, which really aren't people that are around me physically. I do have some family and friends, but I do have, my spiritual group and my UFO group that I connect with and I feel at home with. And, but yeah, I just stay away from, like I said, a lot of things. I'm not on social media. I don't do Facebook. I don't do the news, that type of thing. I kind of live in my own little cocoon. And that to me protects me from all the negativity. And I'm just living in my own little la la land. Which sometimes drives my husband crazy. It's like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not in that level of reality. I create my own reality. I'm staying here. You can't make me move.
Well, that
So
must have
that's what I
affected your relationship with your husband too. How did that must have changed as well? How did he cope with it?
well, it did. For a long time, I didn't even tell him what happened. And then when I did, he didn't believe it. He didn't understand it. How could you? and I just started withdrawing more and more and just spending more time on walks and stuff. But then I started writing my book, and he worked at Kodak, Eastman Kodak in Rochester, and he worked the night shift mostly. And I would have like chapters I'd print out or copies of the book as I'm working on it and ask him, can you take this to work and make copies for me? So he was able to make free copies at work. And he'd be on the night shift and he'd make 10, 15 copies of a 200-page manuscript. And I guess he started reading it. And then, people are asking me I traveled around the country to share my story. And people were, having me stay with them and wining and dining me, let's just paying for my meals and expenses because I don't have any money. And I think he started like, I'd be packing, where are you going? Well, I'm going on another talk. And I think he started realizing, well, there must be something to this. I know that he didn't say a lot, but we rub off on people that are light workers. You're a higher vibration. You rub off on people. And to this day, we have a joke because he says, I don't ever want to hear about any of your metaphysical bullshit, he calls it. And, I'll talk about something that I'm reading in the latest book or something that I learned. But then I notice that he's more and more, he's getting on board. Now he knows. And then I'll hear him talking to other people, like his friends on the phone. Yeah, did you know this about? Oh, okay, I guess he was really listening to me. I had people tell me when I was writing my book, he says, your husband's really excited about this book you're writing. I'm like, you're kidding me. He doesn't even say anything to me about it. It's like, so yeah, but he was very supportive of my work. He was confused and I think not on board at first, but he was making copies for me, supportive about, financially supported me leaving my job to start my nonprofit organization. And so, yeah, so he really was my rock, my rock. I think he was along for the ride, whether he knew it or not. And now everything's with the UFOs and the aliens, and I roll your eyes. Now what am I going through? And now he's learning all about that. And he comes to the UFO meetings and and meets other experiencers. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, because I mean, I'd assume that it would just rub off on them, or you would grow apart. And
the divorce rate with NDEers is something like 90%. And I think the good thing is that we've always, because my husband always worked, it wasn't just nights, it was trick work. And I always work days. We had our own thing that we were never joined at the hip. He had, and he had his circle of friends he'd play poker with, and I had my circle of friends that I went drinking with. And so afterwards, it was like we still had our separate lives. I was just doing different things. He was doing the same thing. I was just doing different things. And he was, like I said, very supportive. And yeah, you either grow together, or you grow apart. And fortunately, we just celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary. So
congratulations.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, you said it gets quite lonely. I mean, especially if the church is going to literally excommunicate you from there. I mean, where does one go? If somebody has not had a near-death experience, how do people find each other? I started this podcast because I didn't know who to speak to. I was feeling, especially with this whole lockdown, that, I wasn't understanding other people and I couldn't speak to anybody. But where would the normal person go to?
Yeah, well, I did find ions in my research. And they did have a local group that I used to drive to Syracuse, New York. It was a 2-hour drive, and met with them for many years until they stopped having meetings or whatever. And then, yeah, and I think it's just, to this day, I really don't have any friends or people close to me I share any of this, my near-death experience with. I can talk about UFOs with a lot of people, ETs, near-death experience. Like the two often don't meet. But then you find a lot of people where it did meet. They've had both experiences. Yeah. And this is coming more and more common. And now, as I had my UFO group, I was meeting more and more spiritual people through the UFO group, because these are all people, whether you've had near-death experience, ET contact, it's a spiritually transformative experience. You're now conscious of living in more than one reality. So these people, we kind of find each other, and through podcasts or Zoom meetups and that type of thing. So I think, we're not left hanging here alone. It seems like it a lot. And although I'm alone a lot, I don't get lonely. I mean, I have my spirit friends and animal friends, my cats. It's like, God, you're never alone. You're never alone, ever. It's just being aware of who's around you. And thank God for my angels and guides. God, I got their work cut out for them. But yeah, and I keep busy with, people reaching out and wanting help, whether it was a near-death experience, a paranormal experience. And just yesterday, I got a phone call from someone, had a UFO ET experience and has for many years. Didn't know where to go and found me doing research on the internet and found me. And so, yeah, and I'm always happy. I do counseling appointments over the phone or through Zoom, in person or through Zoom. And I also do guided meditations to help people stay connected to either family and friends in heaven or family and friends that may live on spaceships, whether they're extraterrestrial family and friends, or also guided meditations. It's not hypnotherapy, but it's similar. It's type of like regression, but I use meditation instead of hypnosis. So you're fully conscious and aware, or to help people remember missing time or experiences that, they're not quite sure what happened and they want to remember that. And I myself have undergone hypnosis to remember some of my experiences. So.
Okay, that's awesome. And where can people get hold of that information?
My website is www.giftsofgraceministry.org. And if you Google Mary Grace NDE, either in a Google search or a YouTube video, you'll find other videos, other podcasts I've been on. I haven't yet put any of the podcasts on my website. I have to do that. And also on there's the monthly meetings for UFO group and spiritual classes that I teach, that I can do, teach a class on after-death communication or a class on the communion of saints. There's a number of them I have on my website, and I'm happy to do that. Like on demand, if you want to get a group of people together and do a Zoom meeting or have me come in person and do that, happy to do so. And I'm just here to serve and happy to do so. And I want to thank you, Natasha, for giving me the opportunity to share the light and love, and for giving me a chance to share my paranormal passion for the paranormal. And you do a wonderful job with your podcast. Yeah. You're doing so much great work, just putting people on.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, that was just wonderful. And I just love your energy as well. And, I have similar experiences, not that blissed out, but, where I look at the water and I look at the birds and I just kind of feel this love, but I haven't been able to be in their consciousness. So that's just the next step.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just once your consciousness expands, I think the more you meditate, the more your consciousness expands, and people have what we call spiritually transformative experiences, which near-death experience is just one type. You can have out-of-body experience, like I said, a UFO ET experience, anything that really changes your whole life view. And this is what makes it hard for people, because the person that called me yesterday says, I don't know who to talk to. What type of people come to your meetings, your UFO meetings? I go, well, all the black sheep of the family, all the, the mystics. It's like we're the island of misfit toys. And, the people just want someone like-minded people. He goes, yeah, that's me. That's me. And I'm like, yeah, we understand. So,
Yeah.
and that's the Finger Lakes UFO and Paranormal Meetup is the name of our group. And we're south of Rochester, New York, western side of New York, United States. And yeah, and I'm just happy anyone wants to call me. The best thing is go to the website, giftsofgraceministry.org, and get all my email and phone information there. It's best to text or call me. I don't check my email that often. It's just like, he was like, why don't you spend much time on your computer? It's like, I'd be better spend time with God. I could be meditating. I could be hanging out in bliss. So I
Yeah,
still
exactly.
have that struggle.
Oh, no, that was great. Yeah, well, I'll post the links below, and I'll post the links to your books as well. Yeah,
Okay,
they look
thank you.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Before we go, just one last question. Do you have a message for our viewers?
Yes, and it's put your trust and faith in God, no matter what you're going through. Part of the benefit of that, you don't always know why you're going through something or what you're going through, why it's all happening, but God does. And God knows, so just put your trust and faith in God, and that everything's going to be all right. It's all going to work out in the end. When doors close in your face and you're trying to manifest something that's not working, just understand that, maybe God has something better for you waiting. Just be patient and know that God has your back, and so does your angels and guides, your family and friends on the other side. You've got a lot of people helping you out and working with you. You are not alone. You are not alone. But put your trust and faith in God and know that everything is going to be all right.
Lovely. Thank you so much, and
Well, thank
appreciate your
you.
time.